Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of CFA Society Sri Lanka, I'm pleased to welcome you to today's virtual discussion on women in finance, where we hear perspective from CFA charter holders who have pursued successful and diverse careers in the financial sector. CFA Society is pleased to embark on an initiative, Women in Finance, to improve the diversity and inclusion in the finance industry, particularly to close the gender gaps. If you look at Sri Lanka, only 34% of working age women are formally employed. And according to the research done by IMF, it is estimated that Sri Lanka's GDP can be raised by up to 20% by closing the gender gap. A rapidly evolving financial sector demands new capabilities and a more diverse workforce and an inclusive workplace culture. Whilst challenges still exist, women are increasingly playing more senior leadership roles across multiple industries today. According to a recent survey carried out by the CFA Institute globally about gender diversity, it was found that while women continue to make progress within the industry, much more needs to be done to ease the global bottleneck that is preventing their full and equitable advancement within the profession. Further, the report highlights that while women continue to be underrepresented at every level and in finance functions, this disparity could be addressed. Therefore, I trust today's virtual conversation with 4 women leaders from the finance industry in Sri Lanka, where they will share their perspectives to address gender gaps in the finance industry and take forward some of the key action points for us to address, will result in a fruitful discussion. In the context of CFA Society Sri Lanka, women members and leaders who have volunteered with the society have played a leading role since inception to build and develop our society to what it is today. Many of our innovative initiatives have been conceptualized and implemented by women members who are participating in the discussion today. And on behalf of the society, I would like to thank them for their leadership and contribution to the society. These initiatives have greatly helped society to achieve what we have achieved over the last 20 years and stand out amongst our peers. With that, now it's my pleasure to invite Rajini Rajapaksa, CFA, Director and Treasurer of CFA Society Sri Lanka and Senior Manager Tax Incorporated to moderate the discussion. Over to you, Rajini.
Thank you, Dinesh. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Rajini Rajapaksa from the CFA Society Sri Lanka, and a warm welcome to all of you to our webinar, Women in Finance, with our group of panelists. Globally, there is a growing demand for new skills and capabilities, and the finance industry is no exception. To meet the challenges of tomorrow, we need an increasingly diverse and inclusive workforce and inclusive workplace culture. In Sri Lanka, though, the gap is even wider, with our female workforce participation lower than most other peers in the region. So our discussion today is really to understand from 4 senior practitioners within the industry itself and representing different sectors, their views on what has led to some of those gaps that we see for women in the finance industry, how they personally overcame some of those challenges, and what can be done more to attract and retain more females in the finance industry and capital markets. So before we get into the meat of our session, I'd like to introduce the 4 panelists on the webinar today, starting with Rajini Rajapaksa, a former past president of CFA Society Sri Lanka, and an independent director at Nations Trust Bank. Thanks for joining us today, Rajini. And we also have Mifnaz Jawahar, the Group Executive Officer at Uzabase. And we also have Nadika Ranasinghe, Director at Fitch Ratings Lanka and Director of CFA Society Sri Lanka. And we also have Samal Kathuralia joining us, Manager Capital Projects and Infrastructure and Deal Strategy at PwC Sri Lanka. Again, thank you all for joining us today. It's a great privilege to have you with us on this discussion. So without much further delay, let me start the discussion with Rajini. So Rajini, you have had a very long and rewarding career in the industry. You played some very interesting roles. Can you talk us a little bit about how you first got into the finance industry and also what motivated you to do CFA at a time when CFA was perhaps not as well known in the local market? So Rajini, over to you. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Rashmi, and thanks for having me over. Yeah, I actually got into finance not by choice, but I would say accidentally, because once I did maths for my A-levels, and after I did my A-levels, I was to join the University of Moratuwa, but the JVP trouble started in '89, and there was a long haul, I think, in joining the university. So therefore, my parents wanted me to do CIMA, and I did CIMA, and I finished CIMA also, and joined PwC as an audit trainee. And that's how I got into finance. And then I was, I think, earmarked to be an accountant. But of course, I was not that keen to be in financial accounting. But at the same time, there was something which I liked when I was doing CIMA. In stage 4, we did CAPM. That is the capital asset pricing model. And that really interested me. And when the unit trust industry started, and then when they started advertising, I applied for an analyst position at Citibank Unit Trust, and I was selected. So there, when I joined, that was the inception of the industry. Everything was new, everybody was new, and there wasn't much training. Everyone was doing their own thing. Only training we got was from our foreign partners. That was from Unit Trust of India for us and HSBC Bank, Hong Kong. But that was like one-off trainings, and there was no formal other training for us to carry on in the fund management industry. So I was looking for ways and means of getting some qualification or the other. And I was thinking of doing an MSc in finance when CFA was introduced to Sri Lanka. In the first 2 batches, actually, people were not allowed to pay and join. So it was only there were scholarships awarded. And most of these scholarships were awarded to CEOs. And I was not a CEO at that time. I was just an analyst. But then I think the scholarships continued for about 3 or 4 years. In the 3rd batch, I was lucky enough to be awarded the scholarship. I jumped in, took it on, and there was no turning back from there onwards. Continued the journey of completed the exams first time around. And immediately on completing the exams, the employer also recognized me and made me a fund manager in the industry. So thereafter, the CFA qualification has helped me immensely in all my roles. And even today, I would say it is helping me a lot.
So just following on from that, you've had the distinction of being the first female CFA charter holder, one of the first female fund managers in the local capital markets, and also the first female CFA Society Sri Lanka president. Can you explain to us or just give your insights on whether you faced any challenges in these roles in a sector that, especially at that time, was probably not as represented by women? And what your experience has been?
So actually, I must say, I never experienced any gender differences in playing any of the roles. I was given the opportunity by all my bosses because all of them were good professionals, and they believed in if you have the capability, you can perform. So I would say right throughout my career, not only in fund management, even later on, if you proved you had the capability to move on. So therefore, my advice even now to the charter holders is there is no glass ceiling in my view. It's the field is up to you. If you play well, you can win and you can succeed. And I must also thank all my colleagues, male, female, and in my superiors. Everybody has been always has helped me immensely. I haven't faced any encumbrances just because I have been a female.
That's great to hear. And from that point, from early days of your career to now, I'm sure you can see a lot of changes that have happened in the capital markets industry landscape. What are some of the changes in your view that has really transformed the industry? And do you think the sector has a lot more female representation versus when you first joined?
So yes, I joined the industry in 1992. So that was a long time back, maybe around 30 years back. Of course, the market has grown in depth and breadth, definitely, because there are more companies listed in the market now. There are more participants. I think one reason for the depth of the market to increase is because there have been the wealth in the nation has grown. Definitely, the per capita income has grown, and now people are able to save, just not live, but save as well. So therefore, people are looking at alternative means of investing and growing their wealth. Then, of course, even there's a need for for them to save for the retirement. So because of those needs, the wealth management industry has grown. At the same time, when you look at the number of companies listed in the market, that also has grown because traditionally the companies depended on bank finance, but now the companies have no choice but to go out and compete for capital in capital markets, fixed income or equity markets both. So therefore, the depth and breadth of the market has grown widely. The need for research has grown because of the competition, and also people are looking for more professional advice. So with all that, I think the opportunities for both male and females have grown in the capital market. And it has given more opportunities for females also to participate in the industry. But of course, one setback I see is most of the females participate in analytical roles, kind of. The representation in the fund management industry has grown. But of course, I would like to see more participation in those active roles like fund management, treasury management by more of my colleagues.
So CFA charter holders have also played an instrumental role in the overall development of the capital markets and the broader finance sector in Sri Lanka. With regards to especially the capital markets development, which again will be a key contributor for our overall country's development, what role do you think CFA charter holders need to play to really make an impactful contribution and also to enhance the diversity of our workforce?
So of course, once again, as I said earlier, the wealth has grown, and there's a need for people to save for their retirement. It's the family support in your retirement is fading away. So therefore, it's important to save and plan for your retirement. So that's one area as charter holders where we can help with our wealth management, fund management capabilities. Then the companies need more structuring of different instruments and new instruments that are coming to the market. So therefore, the investment banking industry needs to grow. Then at the same time, also the technology aspect in the market has grown tremendously, not only in Sri Lanka, all over the world. So therefore, now you can do most of the jobs from home with the technology, and also the jobs have become virtual. The geographical distinction of jobs are fading away. One can sit in Sri Lanka and work for a US company. So given those circumstances, and also another thing is like you can do research virtually. Back in those days, we used to visit companies to do research reports. But of course now you can do a virtual tour in a manufacturing plant just by staying at home or wherever else in the world. So with those technological advancements, people can do remote jobs, even in the fund management industry. And I think one reason for females to not participate that actively in the investment management field was because it was taking up their family time. So the ladies used to leave mid-career for family commitments. But with these changes, that's with the virtual and the technological changes that has come about, there's an opportunity for females to participate more. And also there's a requirement from the family background also, like, dual income is important. It's difficult for a family to survive on a single income. So therefore, the women can contribute by taking on these jobs, these demanding jobs from home. And so I think there's immense opportunity. It's up to us to take it on and move. And I don't think there's any hindrance if you prove I think there's no stoppage for anyone to not move in your career. Also, on the other side, there's one thing that has not changed in the fund management industry. Fund management has always been based on ethics and integrity. That remains still the same up to date. And in my personal view, women are more responsible. Women can do multitask. Women are also the most trustworthy at the moment. If you take both genders, women are more trustworthy, in my opinion. So therefore, there's an immense opportunity once again for females to prove in this industry.
Thanks, Rajini, for your perspectives. So with that, I would like to turn to Mifnaz next. Again, Rajini, thank you so much for sharing those insights. I will come back to you if you have questions at the end of our session. Moving on now to Mifnaz. So Mifnaz, you're currently the Group Executive Officer of Uzabe, a business intelligence platform. Can you tell us a little bit about what your journey has been and what it has been like to build a team of 80 from scratch at Uzabe? What were some of those key lessons that you learned along the way? And also, how did CFA contribute to that journey?
Yes, Rashmi, thanks for having me. So when I look back at setting up the Uzabe Sri Lanka office, I think it's the diversity in work experience that I had before joining Uzabe that really helped, and where I was prepared to, set up an office and grow the team. So going back, I started my career at Sri Lankan Airlines as a management trainee. And like Rajini, I didn't, even though I had an accounting background, I didn't want to get into financial accounting. And then at Sri Lankan Airlines, I was working as a financial analyst. I was working directly with the CFO, which was a great learning opportunity for me. And subsequently, I joined Amber Research and now Equity, which is called Equity. And I think joining Amber Research was a turning point for me because that's when I got into equity research and also subsequently CFA. And I want to say that if I hadn't joined Amber, I don't think I would have done CFA because I hadn't heard about CFA before that time. And at Amber, I started off as a buy-side analyst working for a portfolio manager. And then I was given the opportunity to manage multiple teams and also set up and grow teams from scratch. And I think this was an experience I went back and draw in from when I set up the user base Sri Lanka office as well. And I am very thankful for the opportunities that the managers actually gave me. I mean, there was no gender bias. I mean, I had awesome, like one of the best bosses at Amber, who always continuously gave me challenges, exposed me to challenges and opportunities for growth. And then subsequently, I joined Allianz. So I got into risk management and Allianz. It was completely new to me. And that's one reason I wanted to try out something new. And that's when I joined Allianz. And even when I did risk management and especially investment risk management, CFA, I had to go back and draw in from my knowledge of CFA in order to, get into the field. And CFA immensely helped here. As well as, and then at Allianz, I also got into strategy, financial planning, and I kept going back to CFA. And when I also did FRM, I think because I had the foundation for CFA, it made the exams much easier. And when I joined Userbase as well, there are so many ways that CFA has helped. I mean, one is when we developed the framework to do new reports. That was one. And I also, when I recruited, I was very specific on when I built up the initial team, looking at CFA charter holders. And I also used to recruit from the CFA Research Challenge participants who turned out to be like excellent candidates and who are actually currently managers at Userbase. Yes, I think one, lesson coming from that would be, like hiring is key. I think we all agree it is, we all know it is, but are we placing enough emphasis on hiring the right talent at the right time? Because your team is your support system. And all of us are not good at everything we do. And that's something we all need to acknowledge. We're not good at everything. So having that team which complements your strengths and weaknesses is really important.
Absolutely. So just a follow-up to that, in your role, you have led delivery teams located across multiple locations from Sri Lanka to Singapore to China. Can you share with us what that experience has been like, playing a leadership role and also working with different locations and different cultures?
So Raj, like managing geographically dispersed teams is never easy. It's always a challenge. And while I think research and finance is a common language, at least for the analyst team, your level of motivation, different factors that motivate you, and also maybe work ethic can vary depending on the culture. So I think initially understanding that and looking at how you can take decisions with a better understanding of the different cultures was important. But the most important point is communication. I think communication is key. It's always better to over-communicate than under-communicate. That's what I always think, that frequency of communication is really, really important. How we tackled that is, so we set up, because we are all in different places, right? So we set up a common team vision in terms of what we want to do, who our clients are, and why we are doing it. Why is our value proposition? So that irrespective of where you're based and you're the analyst team, you actually work towards this common vision. And this helped create that foundation for us to lead by context and also give the autonomy for the team to also make decisions, because you have this vision. You keep going back to that when you're making decisions. And again, touching on CFA, so CFA is a global qualification. So if you have an analyst team in Singapore, Sri Lanka, or China, or even Japan, that's one qualification you can encourage the team to get, because of, it has been really useful in our work. And that's a qualification we have always encouraged for the global analyst team.
So the third question that I really have for you is, if we look at the USA-based team, close to, I think almost 70% of your team are female. And I think about 50% of your management team are female. So those stats are much higher than what you would see in most companies, even in the industry or even across other industries. Can you explain what has been a key differentiator in attracting and retaining female talent at your company?
Yes, they are very great stats actually to share. So we are quite proud of the stats. So I think we all agree that flexibility is one key aspect. But I think the question is the degree to which each company allows that flexibility can vary. So in terms of user base, when I set up the team, I mean, we did have like, actually initially when we started, we had like maybe 80% female, and now it's slightly come down because we've also made sure that the team is a bit more diverse. So in terms of flexibility again, I mean, I think we've made a conscious effort to give each of our employees flexibility depending on their specific circumstances. For example, working mothers. So so that depends on the type of work you do, the team you're assigned to, and also the flexibility to work from home from anywhere at any time. And I want to stress the timing because that also means you can do your work at any time. It can be 2 hours during the day and also maybe 4 hours in the evening. And that sort of flexibility has really helped us attract a lot of females as well as working mothers. And the second point I wanted to highlight is we've not stopped there. We've also given them the opportunity to grow, because it's not, okay, this is your job, it's flexible, just make sure it's done. It's also, you also need to grow as a person. So we've created career paths for them. We have a very transparent salary scale and a competency system. So because the salary scale is transparent, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you're in one title, you just get the same salary. And the competency is also transparent. You know what you need to do to move to the next level. And again, there is no, gender is not even like a concern here. It depends, it doesn't matter. So these initiatives or these policies that we have really helped us attract and retain female talent.
That's great to hear, Mifi. And again, thanks for sharing your experience and also what you have done at your firm to also enhance and promote that kind of diversity at the workplace. So next, I would like to welcome Nadika to the conversation. And Nadika, thanks again for joining with us. Just want to start off with, so you interestingly actually have a background or educational background in law. So what made you do CFA next and then opt for a career in finance?
Hi, Rashmi. Thanks a lot for the invite. So, I've always liked numbers. So even for my A-levels, I did commerce. And like everyone else at that time, right after A-levels, you start CIMA, which I also did. While I was doing that, I haven't even got my A-level results. One thing I realized is after doing commerce, in terms of a university career, what you have is like maybe doing management, which was what I thought was very similar to CIMA. So then when the results came, I thought maybe I'll do something different, and I had enough marks to enter law faculty. So I took that option. But funnily enough, it only took about 2 months, I realized it was not for me. So because after doing CIMA, or while doing CIMA, doing law, I realized my passion was more with numbers and not arguing with others. I don't know. So then on that basis, but I completed my LLB. And right after that, I joined AMBA. And there, everything is about finance. And we had Ravi Abesuri at that time as the country head, and he was promoting CFA and said that, if you want to be in this industry, you need to do CFA. And I'm so glad, 15 years later that I did that, because it has really helped my career over the past 17 years. So, with CIMA, then I started on CFA. Never went back to law. I mean, even now people tell me, you can do your attorneys and it's a matter of doing, a couple of deeds per month and you should be fine. But for me, I guess you need to be passionate about what you do as well. So in that way, I think I'm quite happy where I am in my career. So with CFA, I was at AMBA for 9 years. And then at AMBA, I actually worked in buy side, then sell side, and then equity, and then fixed income, where I again found my passion, where I realized I'm more. Given that I'm quite risk averse, fixed income just was my thing. And with that, I moved to Fitch Ratings and been there for 7 years now. So that's it. I mean, I guess having the option is always good, but I feel you need to do what you're passionate about. And having done law, I mean, it has really helped me. I mean, in my analysis, in my logical thinking, in finding loopholes, in all that it has helped. But so no regrets. But CFA and the finance industry has been what it is for me.
So in that path that you've, taken, and what were some of the biggest challenges you faced along the way, especially as you took on more leadership roles and also maybe, with other commitments, also maybe expanding in your personal life? What were some of those challenges?
Yes, so I mean, at AMBA, I was maybe in my late 20s, early 30s. And I was striving to take up, leadership roles and, to see teams grow from scratch, like as if you mentioned, that gave a lot of satisfaction. And I had the time commitment to do that. And I had really good managers, really good team members, which made my life much easier. And also, I got the opportunity to work with a lot of people in different locations. I mean, compared to now, those days, we didn't have like Zoom or Teams. I have worked with people I've never seen in my life. But still, male, female, we worked well. And it has been because everyone has been committed to their job. So that really helped. So, I mean, at the point I left AMBA, I was managing about a 30-member team, was really enjoying it. But what I realized was I wanted to change from a challenging role to a more stable role because my other responsibilities, my personal responsibilities and commitments were growing. And I realized that I can't give that same commitment to my job as I used to. And it was not fair to it would be unfair on one of the roles if I do both. So at least for a while, I wanted to take up a more stable job. And Fitch has been that to me. It's a small team. And but one thing is that if you're even looking for the stability, I think you need to be, it's something that makes you satisfied with your work. Just because you look for stability should not mean that you do something you're not happy with. So in this case, I mean, my current job, even after 7 years, it keeps on challenging me. So it has worked well. So in terms of leadership role, I think the challenging thing is that until you have commitments, it's all good. But after that, you need to make a call or you need to have that energy in yourself to do both. But if you have a very strong support system, it's doable. And I think most of the organizations now provide that. So which is a good thing.
I think we have one question from the audience. Maybe I'll come to you, Janaki, in just a bit. Just give us maybe a little bit of time, but I will definitely come back to you on the question. So kind of to get to the latter part of, in your view, you worked with teams in other locations as well. Why are we lagging other similar countries when it comes to, say, gender diversity and inclusivity across the finance industry, and I guess even in other industries in Sri Lanka? And why is it really important that we improve that participation at the national level?
Okay. So I personally believe that diversity, the representation should be based on merit. But it's always good to have that diversity because different people bring different things to the table. So it's always good to have that diversity. So if you look at it, I personally feel that especially female participation is much less at the mid-management and the senior management level. And I think that's because at your you take certain decisions in your personal life, which makes you kind of take a break from your career. But again, that this as unemployment is bad, I think underemployment is also bad. Because if I look at it, 80% of my batch at law faculty were females. And most of the people in my CIMA class were female. But if you now look at it, how many female president's councils do you have? How many female judges do you have? Same way, like how many CFOs or CEOs, female CEOs do you have? So it is, the way things are, people have to take, especially females have to take a choice, and because of that, they've taken career breaks. But it's important that you bring them back. And as Rajini said, females do have certain qualities that can be very useful in a boardroom or anywhere in a management space. So bringing them back, but to do that, I think certain things need to happen. Certain infrastructure needs to be in place so that we can work with a clear mind. Because if you're always worried about what's happening on the other side of your life, you might not be able to do your job properly. So, having, your school system where where your kids will be there till late so that you don't have to rush in the middle of like a meeting, where you don't have a lot of homework to do once you get home, creche facilities, those things I think have to be in place so that a female or, a wife or a mother can really focus on their job during those office hours. That has to be then. Also, I think there has to be a mindset change also. Where, I think a fear I also have is that if I don't give my 100%, I might lose my job. Or, I will. So I think from the employer side also, if that fear can be taken out, you can't perform at that same level every day. You also have your off day. So having that kind of flexibility, and I think thankfully the two companies I have worked for, I have never experienced it, but those are the things I think at least at minimum should be in place so that more females will be there at senior management and at mid management and have careers in very successful careers.
So, I think flexibility is something everyone keeps talking about. And I think we've really seen that flexibility, whether it's remote working options or flexible hours so that people can work, according to their personal schedules. We've seen a massive shift in that because of the pandemic, where we've actually seen a lot of employers now giving people those kind of flexibilities. Do you think that these will become mainstays even after the impact of the pandemic is over?
I hope so. Personally, for me, because I'm someone who thought it will never work, but it has worked well for me. And I think especially in finance, again, it depends on the job. There are certain jobs that you can do from home while others you can't. So, but especially in finance, I feel that most jobs, if you're working behind a computer, you can do it from anywhere. So, and if you have given that flexibility, you can continue to do it. Talking from experience, the past 2 years in our company, we have not seen any significant productivity drop or inefficiencies. So, if that's the case, we should, I think, give that flexibility. But one thing is that with that flexibility, I think something you also need to understand is when you're at home, especially during the pandemic, if you had children and all, they were also at home. So there was a lot of disruptions also. So one thing I was actually very grateful for our company was that they did provide us with flexibility in terms of, or relief in the terms of like giving extra days like as leave to care for your children if there are emergencies. They also provided an allowance to hire someone to get that extra support. Those won't continue forever, but that kind of mindset, that kind of help really, that really helped us to do our work without any disruptions. So, but in the long term, I think you need to provide that if it has really worked, because and that would really help, as I mentioned earlier, some of the females who have taken career breaks to come back. that would be a very attractive thing. So if you want to retain people and attract people, that would be a good thing to continue with.
And thanks again for sharing a lot of very personal, truths as well. I think that will really, resonate with a lot of people, joining in as well. So thanks again, Nadika. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Next, I'd like to invite Samalka. And Samalka, again, thanks for joining the session today with us. Really glad to have you on this webinar. So Samalka, at the time when you joined the industry, maybe a little bit after some of us, what attracted you to finance at that time? And also would like to understand a little bit about your experience moving from a more research environment to now a more consulting and advisory role. So could you give us a little bit about, tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, thanks, Rashmi, for having me. I'm truly honored to be a part of this panel. So to answer your question, I think similar to the others as well, I also started my career in audit or accounting, basically. But what really attracted me to finance was the kind of variety it offered, and also the different aspects that come under finance. So if you really look at, or basically when I was studying, doing my A-levels, I was constantly torn between wanting to basically follow something in math or numbers because I was passionate about numbers, but I also had some kind of passion for languages and policy, etc. So at that point, my parents actually guided me to say, okay, you know what, pick different subjects. And luckily for me, I was able to do London A-levels. And I did maths, econ, accounting, and I added English language and literature to it as well. So I was able to kind of follow different or study different aspects. And even after my A-levels, I actually moved into management accounting. So I was doing CIMA. But even at that point, I also enrolled myself in a diploma in international relations. So I kind of, got exposure to subjects like international law and policy, which again, sort of intrigued me. But I started, I think, my career in audit, but quickly moved on to capital markets. So again, I was at Amber Research. And here, this is where I was also introduced to CFA while I was working at Amber. And that's definitely helped me progress in my career during the capital markets era. But then recently, about 3 years ago, I switched to a more consulting and advisory role, like you said. And what really attracted me to that role was the fact that it was looking at capital projects and infrastructure. And deal strategy. So on the capital projects and infrastructure, and this is at PwC, my current role is to help structure and finance large-scale projects for either the government or the private sector. And I think it's become more relevant and critical in today's context, I think, where, the government is obviously facing resourcing constraints to bring these two parties together. So I found it really interesting to kind of work with both the public sector as well as the private sector in this current role. At the same time, I do spend a little bit of time on fundraising aspects, country assessments for foreign investors, business planning, public policy research. That aspect is still there, which is why I really enjoy my current role, because I'm doing, like I said, while I was studying as well, it really attracted me. I was really attracted to different aspects, and I kind of get to sort of follow my passion in my current role. And even in my current role, we also sort of look at new initiatives as well. So, for example, ESG, maybe, looking at alternative investments, etc., which has also been challenging, but also interesting. And I think this is where CFA has helped me immensely as well, because you can stay relevant and up to date by actually, sort of reading content made available by CFA, and also listening to, webinars and joining events and things like that, which are very relevant to my current role. And it's really helped me sort of stay in finance, and I really enjoy the work that I do.
Thanks, Amaka. So the next question I really wanted to kind of discuss with you was, So the Sri Lanka's female participation, again, is something we talked about, is that it's lower than a lot of the peers in the region. Nadika also touched on this a little bit earlier, especially on what maybe companies can do to really encourage more women to enter and also to retain them. In your view, what do you think we can do to encourage more women to enter the workforce and also be retained in this industry, especially from a mindset shift? Where do you think we need to really address?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, Rashmi. I think that mindset shift is really important, especially in a country like Sri Lanka, where there can be a few cultural barriers. So I think that shift needs to really come from home, to start with your family, sort of encouraging your children to pursue their passions and follow their dreams, irrespective of the gender. And then thereafter, I think even in school, something I don't see happening in Sri Lanka is the career guidance aspect of things, right? So people aren't aware of what the opportunities are. And this, I think, affects women more because typically women tend to follow the traditional roles available to them. And this may probably be because they're not aware of what the options are. So I think in school also, it's really important to kind of focus on making them aware of the options available to them and providing equal access to information. So this sort of mentality that certain roles are not suitable for women, we need to really get rid of, I think. And also, I think when you sort of switch from, that is when you're getting into the workforce. But even staying on in the workforce, Rashmi, I think there's a lot we can do as women to sort of create an ecosystem to provide guidance to the younger generation that needs it. I think there's a lot that we can do as women to sort of help navigate certain challenges. I think everyone mentioned that women as, primary homemakers need to sort of juggle managing a home and managing their jobs. So I think navigating those challenges, I think as women, we can also sort of support the younger generation in that sense as well. So that's another aspect. I also want to touch on on the sort of opportunities available in term. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, power cut. So I think
we still have you. So that's
great. So one final point I really wanted to make was I think we have a number of people at the top level in Sri Lanka. Maybe not enough, but we do have people. But we also need to focus on encouraging inclusivity and diversity across the organization. Because there's no point in just having a few at the top layer if you don't have a good enough talent pool available to pick from when the time comes to really pick your next layer of leaders, right? So I think it's really important to sort of create those opportunities, make available information to both men and women to sort of encourage them to enter the workforce and also stay
on. Thanks, Samarka. Something, I'm sure a lot to think about for everyone. If you guys have questions before we get on to the next question, and we're kind of coming to the end of, what we really had prepared to really walk through with you guys today. If you have questions, if you have any questions for our panelists, please do post them in the Q&A or the chat function, and I can then, take some of those questions to the panelists. On the final question that I really wanted to discuss with you, you have, again, like almost all of the, not almost, all of the panelists on the call today, you have continued to volunteer and engage on networking. You have continued to volunteer with the CFA Society. Can you tell us how important those aspects are, aside from your work itself? Because again, this is, I think, an area where women often don't, really engage. Again, maybe due to personal commitments, that the networking side. Can you tell us a little bit about what that has meant for you?
Sure, Rashmi. So I actually got into the research challenge committee a couple of years ago on the request of the then chair, Aruna Pereira, who said, okay, we need more young blood in the society. We need more women coming in, kind of taking on more initiative within the society as well. So why don't you kind of help me out with the research challenge? And I said, sure, why not? And I really enjoyed kind of putting things together with Aruna for that first time that we went virtual for the local leg of the research challenge. And that was in 2020. And then last year, I actually spearheaded the project. And mind you, my team was all female as well. And we just concluded the local leg of the finals last week, and I think it was quite successful. And to me, really, what was very fulfilling from this experience is having these students come back to you and say, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for giving us the training, sort of, giving us the opportunity to present our thesis, etc. And they gained a lot out of it. So that was very fulfilling to me. And I also need to make a note here that when I looked at the participants, so we had, I think this year we had a record number of teams participating, 19 teams took part. But when you looked at the participants, I was really happy to see that the mix between the female and males was actually 50-50. So I think the others also mentioned this. We have so much talent at the university level. They are very educated, but we don't see that number kind of transitioning in the workplace. So we need to really sort of encourage people to continue to stay on in the workforce and help them navigate those challenges so that we can kind of continue this number into the workforce as well. So I think it was a great experience. And yeah, like you said, we need to create opportunities for networking and, saying yes to these kinds of opportunities to volunteer your time, meet with new people. I think it's really great for your personal development and career progression as well.
Thanks, Amaka. So with that, I'm also going to take a few questions from the audience members. So we have a question, maybe I'll present it to the whole panel and, feel free to weigh in on it. So the first question is, do any of you feel that women in Asian cultures are restricted from progressing to leadership roles because of the lack of support from spouses, family on the personal front, which is kind of embedded in our society and culture? And whether that's the reason that they're really forced to take a step back in their careers, really, I think in the mid-career point. Samaka, maybe I'll start with you since I have you in, but I'd like to also present it to the other panelists as well.
Sure, Rashmi. Yeah, I think that's why I touched on that mindset shift. It's really important in a country like Sri Lanka where there may be cultural barriers. And there are, I think, a lot of women that have talent, are educated, and want to sort of productively contribute to the economy, but can't because they have other commitments as well. So it is an issue, but this is why we need to sort of make people aware of why it's important to get women to sort of contribute more to the economy. And, you need to sort of have companies like Userbase, even PwC, the numbers speak for itself, right? So they sort of have policies that empower or basically make it possible for women to sort of get into the workforce and then stay on.
Thanks, Amaka. Any perspectives on that question from Mifnaz or Nadika or Rajini? Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Mifnaz, maybe do you want to maybe weigh in on that, or do you think, have you seen that in your teams where people have had to maybe take a step back with, or have you actually seen the reverse of that?
Well, I do agree with everything Samarka actually was saying in terms of, I think there has been, in terms of the Asian culture, we have been held back, but I like to think that that's changing. And it also depends on specific work, your personal circumstances as well. So given our culture of, women most of the women, like quitting their jobs after getting married or having children, and taking a break. So it's been common. But I think given these opportunities that have opened up, which we're also promoting, that Samarka was also talking about in terms of companies actually promoting those policies to create flexible work environments, and us as leaders encouraging our teams even to come back to the workplace after taking a break. I like to think that it's changing. Yeah.
Thanks, Mifnaz. So one more question, in terms of especially the management team level or at the board level even, why is that diversity and kind of, important? Like, do you think that actually makes a difference? Question is, Mifnaz, maybe you can take that, and then I can also get if the others also have any comments on that.
Yeah, sure. So I think we've all answered this to some extent with, different narratives, like what Rajini was saying, the diversity at the board level, because women can bring different things to the table, and also because of certain different personal traits that we have. We might be able to look at things and handle certain situations differently. But why is the diversity, why hasn't it reached the board level as of now in Sri Lanka to the extent maybe it should have? Or it could be also because I guess we also hold ourselves back. And given the personal challenges we have, maybe our progression is not as fast as maybe for a male counterpart. Because we tend to also take the step back. And that could be, I guess that would be one of the reasons.
So one question again, maybe I'll go to Rajini and Nadika for this one, is, there has been a lot of talk about this great resignation wave, with a lot of people actually leaving the organizations, even in the midst of a pandemic, where, most folks were actually, struggling to make their ends meet. What do you think actually really drove that, and what do you think that disconnect was that maybe the employers were just not meeting in terms of employee expectations? Navika, maybe I'll start with you.
I think that would be one of the main reasons, Rashmi, because in that kind of situation, you really need the support, all the support you need. And when that is lacking, I think people do look for other opportunities. And one other thing is that I think the way the pandemic worked, that also opened up a lot of other opportunities for people, like where they had more flexibility, where they had more freedom. So people kind of took up those opportunities by leaving their existing job. So it's a multiple of reasons, but I think all this has made people think more, especially employers, of how they're going to kind of structure their the work processes, everything going forward, how much work flexibility you're going to give, because people now have more options, and so you need to cater to that. If not, you see this continuing.
Yeah, definitely. Rajini, any perspectives from your side on this? What's your take on that?
So yeah, Rashmi, I agree with Nadika. Yes, when there was no support or not much support from some of the organizations to the flexibility that was required at that time, some people were leaving and some were forced to leave because there were retrenchments. When the companies could not afford to make the full payment, or they deliberately retrench some of the staff, excess staff they had. But at the same time, like Nadika said, there are a plethora of opportunities also opened up, especially in the tech sector. And those sectors always gave flexible working hours and ability to work from home. So, and also at a better pay, because the demand for those jobs are still existing and it's growing. So therefore, some of the people who had the talent was able to get a better pay by moving jobs. So I think that was one reason why there was this wave was prevalent, and there was an opportunity for some people to get better jobs.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Rajini. So I think we've reached almost the end of the hour, and I think we will probably wrap up now. Unless anyone else has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or post the question on the Q&A thread. If any of you guys have any last thoughts before we actually wrap up, please do let me know, and I can, invite, this is actually to the panelists. Any last comments or thoughts from your side? I'll take that as a no.
So let me say that I think there are lots of opportunities for women, and I still believe there is no hindrance if you want to take on the opportunities. So my invite is, please take it on, and it will be very nice to see a more higher representation of females in the leadership roles.
Thanks, Rajini. So with that, I think we will conclude this webinar. Before I actually wrap up, I would really like to take this time to thank all 4 of our panelists for taking the time from their busy schedules and for sharing their valuable insights and also their very personal journeys from how they started to how they got here, the challenges that they faced. I mean, these are all 4 people that I have personally been inspired by for the longest time. So again, thank you very much for accepting this invite. On behalf of the CFA Society Sri Lanka, again, want to thank you for accepting our invite to join us today. And again, thanks to all of the participants who joined us today. And I'm sure that these insights that were shared will be very useful for those who are already working in the sector, and also those who are hoping to join this industry. Thanks again for joining in, and I hope you all have gained something from this session as much as I did. So thanks again, and good evening to all of you.